Oh, you know what time it is? It is time for another episode of America's favorite Arizona Wildcats basketball podcast. It's the one, the only McKale Madness podcast with my guy, Corey Williams. I always get the pointing wrong. And I'm Saul Bookman. Appreciate you. Corey, I got the first thing I got to ask you, and I'm about to throw Kevin a curveball to see how fast he is with his production skills. But are you on board with the movement? The movement that we started last night, the Caleb Forever movement. Kevin, if you are quick with it, let's put him to the test. Let's see how fast he can get this graphic up, because I caught him completely off guard. He doesn't even know that I was going to put there it is. Caleb Forever, baby. Let's go.
I don't even know what that is, and I'm not with it. I'm not a fan. Don't put me on.
Here we go. A little context. Context always matters, right?
Yeah. Okay. Give me the context. Just the graphic alone, there's a hard pass. But go ahead.
That's a hard ass graphic. What are you talking about? Kevin did a great job with that.
No, I'm not talking about. I need an explanation, man. Okay. I need an explanation, bro.
So what happened was last night
with the Wakanda
on the post game show. We were Kevin was like, we needed like a hand signal for Caleb, like a movement, like some kind of a hand signal, so like he knows we're talking. It's like a like the Wildcat sign, right? We need a hand signal for a movement. I went like this because in sign language that means love, and he was like, and immediately he was like, Wakanda forever, and I was just like, no, man. And that's how it all started.
Yeah, I got to go back to the lab. That needs work, man. When I see this, I don't think Caleb Love. I don't know sign language. And Black Panther was 5, 6, 7 years ago. We got to go back to the lab. We got to get something different, Caleb.
Listen,
it's good. It's a good thought, but yeah. The Caleb Love movement. That's crazy. I like it. I like the originality, but it needs work.
I mean, listen, the Caleb Love movement is real. It's in effect. And listen, the last 2 games, he's balled out. He's had a combined 50 points in 2 straight games against BYU and Utah. Looks like he's starting to get back into his groove. And, man, it couldn't come at a better time because, hey, like you said last week, there's only 7 games guaranteed. Now there's only 5. And here we go. This is the time to lock in. You got basically 1 week left in your season, starting Saturday, ending on next Saturday, and then you go into the tournament time where everything is one and done. And so it's going to be a very interesting time as Arizona gets to take on not only Iowa State, who's highly ranked, but also Kansas at Kansas, which, even though Kansas has had a bit of a down year by Kansas standards, they're still a lock for the tournament. They're still a good team. They're still tough at home. All those things are in the mix. So, Corey, when you took a step back and kind of looked at this week, let's start with BYU, because BYU was a little crazy, a little wild. Defense didn't feel like showing up, but regardless, Arizona still had a chance to win. A couple really, 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 really tough calls went against Arizona, to say it lightly. When you saw this, what was your assessment and how did you react?
So, like everybody else, I was in the moment on the final couple of plays. I thought Caleb Love, the wave off of his layup and the subsequent free throws, I thought that was a horrible call, because when the contact occurred, the ball was up over his shoulders. He was clearly in the shooting motion. So you've got 1 or 2 calls you can make. It's either and one or, well, he's in the shooting motion. So it's got to be and one. There's really nothing else, or it's a no call. It's either no call at all or and one. There's no possible way that foul is on the ground, because when the foul occurred, he wasn't even dribbling. He was clearly in the shooting motion. So bad call number 1. The reason that that's such a bad call is because if you give Caleb Love the and one, and assuming he makes the free throw, now the horrible call you make at the other end simply gives BYU a chance to tie the game. It doesn't decide the game. It puts him at the free throw line down 2, not down 1. So messing up the Caleb call impacted the horribleness of the ghost foul, what I'll call that, at the other end, where Padilla comes running in from 60 feet away to whistle a foul that I don't believe he had a clear line of vision on. And that's the most egregious part of that foul, because when you call a foul, we're not going to the monitors to get it right. It's not if a toe's on the line. Is it a 2? Is it a 3? Did the ball touch the cylinder? No. The moment you blow the whistle, it's free throws. You can't unwhistle a foul. So the fact that he blew the whistle from 60 feet away blindly when the referee that was 8 feet away from the play had nothing, probably one of the worst calls I've seen in a very long time, because it was irreversible and no one believes he had the best view of that play. He certainly didn't have a better view than the baseline ref. Now, having said all that, being caught up in the moment, I got to keep it real. I got to be the same guy I've been my whole life. If you want to be mad about plays, okay, let's be mad about those 2 plays. But I got to ask, are we mad about the threes? I mean, I don't know how many threes they hit. Pick one. Are you mad about any of those threes? Are we mad about any of the defensive breakdowns that took place? Because you can get mad about those plays as well. We lost the game, but you can go back and pick any of the 90-plus points that BYU scored. Are you equally mad about any of those? You got 90-plus. I don't know if they scored 95 points, something like that. 96 points. Take your pick. Pick some threes to be mad about as well. Pick any of the 96 points to be mad about, because as a player, when you're walking off the feet court and you're going into that tunnel, you had multiple opportunities to make a difference in a game that came down to the final 2 plays. That's the mentality of players. That's the mentality of coaches. That is not the mentality of fans. That is not the mentality of people on message boards and X and Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Everybody's going to be in the moment. Everybody's going to be about those last 2 plays. But the win is usually the accumulation of you put together more good plays than bad plays, and that's how you come out with the win. Arizona didn't do that. Arizona gave up 95. You say 95 or 96?
96.
96 points at the crib. You give up 96 points at the crib, you're going to get beat. I don't care who it is. You give up 96 points at home, you're probably going to lose. And that's what happened. The difference is BYU made the same shots they were missing in Provo a couple weeks earlier. That's the only difference.
That's exactly what I said. It was basically a carbon copy game of the game in Provo, outside of the run that Arizona took to take the lead in Provo in the last 8 minutes of the game. And BYU didn't falter this time down the stretch. They took care of the ball, and they were relatively right there, neck and neck with Arizona. And Arizona had to battle back and take control of the game, and they did. Unfortunately, and this is my thing, to go back to the referee stuff, right? And I was guilty in the moment as well. I was pretty hot.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is where I keep going, right? Because of all the Twitter sleuths out there that are like, oh, it was clearly a foul. Look, his knee stuck out. Okay. First, when you're looking at it on TV from the angle that they're showing it, Tony Padilla is all the way over there, right? He can't see how far that knee is really sticking out to stop Saunders from getting to the basket. He just can't. Now with him in the way, because Saunders is legitimately in the way of that view. So how would he know he didn't just trip over his own feet? That's what I'm saying. It's like, so people are picking and choosing what they want to really emphasize in those moments. And then I have somebody else talking about like, well, the baseline official didn't have a clear view. I mean, we're talking about right here, like this. Like, you mean to tell me in that moment that Tony Padilla, in a split second, I mean a fraction of a second, knew that the baseline official couldn't have possibly seen what happened, and was just like, no, I got you. I'm going to bail you out because I know you couldn't see it. I got you, partner. No, I ain't even trying to hear that at all. It was a bad call. It was a bad call, flat out. And then the end one makes it even worse, because you should have never even been in that position to lose the game. And the end one, again, for the second time, well, that was the first time. The end one was the first time. He was out of position, too, to make that call. That's not his call. Like, the foul happened at the elbow. You know whose call that is? the position Tony Padilla was on the other end of the court when that's his call. If that foul had happened at the other end like that, that's his call. But
and to be clear, I'm okay with a no call on Caleb's layup. I really am, because I think the momentum sways, the crowd erupts, we have the lead. I'm confident in the defense they're about to play. But the stoppage of play, the waving it off, giving BYU time to, in the moment, maybe they burn a timeout. I don't know if they had any or not. But if you give that a no call and just let the game continue to play, I'm okay with that too, because I really don't think it was that much contact. But when you blew the whistle, the only possible contact there was Caleb had already picked the ball up. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, you're 1,000% correct. It's just a bad call all day long, no matter how you slice it. And I won't say real fans, but knowledgeable fans will admit that BYU got away with a couple of calls that normally wouldn't have happened or weren't the best calls in the world. But people looking to justify the win, they're going to see whatever they want to see.
Agreed. Again, I fully agree with you on Arizona should have never given up 96 points. That was the worst defense of the year. They should have locked up. They should have played a lot better on that end. In the second half, they weren't much better than they were in the first half. That was an uncharacteristically poor defensive performance for Arizona. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Arizona loses to BYU. Go ahead, Corey. You got something else?
Yes. So this is why I'm glad that nobody in Tucson knows where I live, because what I'm about to say right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So Arizona, fans that are just blindly dyed in the wool, Arizona, you might well plug your ears, turn this part off. But Saul, I'm going to ask you a series of questions because I know you're going to keep it honest. Does BYU have a player that's just hell on wheels, one-on-one, break you down, get past you?
Not really.
No, they don't. Did BYU shoot a bunch of open threes against Arizona?
Yes.
So one would deduce that their motion, that their action created these open shots, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So did Arizona do a good job schematically?
No.
It is. And I'm not pointing the dirty stick at Tommy or his staff, or I'm not patting BYU on the back. What I'm saying is, if you allow a team to run their stuff and create, they don't have a one-on-one dude. They do not. But yet and still, they shot wide open shots because we're running this so you rotate, so we get the shot. We're running this so you react, so we get the shot. They had guys penetrating into the middle of nowhere just so they could throw passes to other guys to shoot. I thought that Arizona took the bait too often. Now, before we go on, I want everybody to think back to the Houston game. And I want them to remember how Jaden Bradley was trapped every time he used the ball screen. And they dared Arizona to play out of that trap. That's Houston. They trap every ball screen. Texas Tech does the same thing. Arizona didn't do that once against BYU. Not once. How many times did Demon come down the lane with that goofy Euro layup unmolested?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to trap that. I understand you're going to give up a three anyway if you let them use it. So make them be athletic, because I don't think they're an athletic team, but it's all water under the bridge. They don't play BYU again. Maybe they'll play them in the tournament. Who knows? But it's all water under the bridge. But I was just frustrated that BYU's action just kept creating threes, and there seemed to be no remedy on our side to slow that down.
No, you're exactly right. I did think that BYU threw a couple wrinkles. I was pretty impressed with Kevin Young's, especially his after timeout sideline and under the basket plays.
Beautiful.
They were gorgeous. They were gorgeous. Like I was just like, man, that's money. Like that's the stuff that you really want to. Honestly, if you're Tommy Lloyd, you're like, ooh, let me write that one down, because that was a nice little play right there. So and you got to give them credit. Like they balled out just like Arizona, did, and they knew they needed to get this one because they lost the first one up in Provo. It just, if you're Arizona, you just beat Baylor. You know how tough the Big 12 schedule has been. You were right there, one game behind, or two games behind Houston. You drop this one, and basically that wraps up any chance at a Big 12 championship, regular season title. It's over. And now you got to hope that you can hang on to a two spot, because Texas Tech dropped one, Iowa State dropped one. Everybody else is dropping games as well. So it's not like Arizona's the only team that will stub their toe every now and then. Like Arizona lost to Kansas State. A lot of people lost their mind. They didn't lose to Oklahoma State. Iowa State did, though. Texas Tech lost to Houston. That was legit. But Texas Tech was also without two of their key players.
Yeah.
And you kind of knew that
I
one
think
was
they
going to
win
come.
that game. I think they definitely win that game.
Yeah. So, overall, Arizona is in the 2 seed right now. If they win out, it's over. They got the 2 seed. If they win this weekend against Iowa State, they basically all but lock up that 2 spot, because the only team that could basically catch them at that point would be Texas Tech, and Arizona would have to lose, I think, both of their remaining games. So it is what it is. It's water under the bridge. Arizona is bounced back, and they got the win against Utah last night. And to me, what was kind of a sleepwalk of a game in the first 10 minutes. Like it felt like nobody wanted to be out there. It felt like the players didn't really want to be out there too much. I felt like the fans were kind of like, we're here. You know what I mean? But Caleb Love hit a couple threes to kind of spark the crowd and get the mojo back. They went on a run, double-digit lead at halftime, and they end up just kind of walking away with it pretty easily. Relatively stress-free game for the first time it feels like this season. So I am satisfied with where Arizona is at this point in the season. I know you had your eyes on 17-3 to win the Big 12. I think if they would have went 17-3, they might have won the Big 12. Yeah. But they're not going to go 17-3 now. The best they can do is 16-4. And we'll see what this last 3 games of the season looks like as they head to Iowa State. But
I think
go ahead.
If they can get to 16-4, that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, goodness gracious, first year in the league, they go 16-4. I think every Arizona fan would have signed up for that, especially coming out of that Thanksgiving tournament where the Cats dropped all those games. So I'm very pleased with their performance in the Big 12. They were road warriors, like we talked about. They stood tall in some tough road games. And okay, you let one go at home against BYU. It's not the end of the world. Maybe you avenge that at Iowa State, and maybe you double down, and maybe they go 3-0. They could certainly win in Kansas. That's a very winnable game. The Iowa State game, they're going to be trying to have a little get back, but let's be honest, Arizona's playing with house money. There's no pressure on them to go win at Iowa State, but they're going to come out and try and play as if they're the favorites anyway.
Tommy has a chance to be the only coach in U of A history to start off his four straight seasons with 20+ wins. Like, that's pretty cool. That's significant. And Tommy's development, we're going to talk about that here in a second when we get to Carter Bryant and Henri Veesaar. But real quick, I do want to go back to Caleb Love. I felt like he tried to carry the team against BYU, did what he could down the stretch to try and hit some big buckets. He showed up. Big Caleb Love showed up. Utah, I felt like he kind of felt the moment and was just like, yeah, let me go ahead and take over, because we need this spark. Otherwise, we're playing with our food a little too much. And I thought he did a great job of that. And he kind of led the Wildcats down the right path, and then they kind of took it from there and pulled away. Overall, do you feel good about Caleb Love down this last couple weeks of the season compared to where he was at times during the regular season, or do you still need to see something else before you can kind of make that assessment?
I wish I could lie and say that I feel solid. It's just we've got a huge body of work. And I guess ultimately, if you're brutally honest with yourself, would you describe Caleb Love's play as consistent?
No.
And that's where we are. And as we get into the win or go home portion of the season, that's the question that all Wildcat fans are asking themselves, or being honest with themselves, or even lying to themselves about. I don't know that you can say his performances throughout the season have been consistent. There's been stretches where he does. I give him credit because he doesn't try to force anything. He's just out there playing, and I think that's been the reason he has had success, because he hasn't been forcing things. But it always seems like there are moments where, man, you're the best player on the floor, and you weren't heard from over the final 6 minutes of play. Those are the things that scare the death into me when I think about the tournament, because that's all it takes is a bad 4 minutes and your season's over. So while I don't label him as being consistent, there's no question he's the most talented. He has the most impact, and he is the difference maker on the floor in all of these games. He'll be the difference maker against Iowa State. They don't have a player that can score like he can. The question is, are we going to be sitting around in a 3-point game with Caleb being 1 for 9 with 4 minutes to go? Or are we going to be in a game where, Caleb's got 20 various ways? We've seen both. And I feel like we've seen both equally this season. So I think we all knew when Caleb Love announced that he was returning to Arizona that our season would rise and fall on his play. And that's still the case. How you feel about it, if you want to be optimistic, there's plenty of stuff to point to. If you want to be glass half empty, there's plenty of stuff to point to. I'm going to be optimistic and root for this guy because I really believe he's got that dog in him. I think he's got a great attitude, and I can't imagine what it must be like for him having all that weight on him, because no matter what anybody else does, everybody goes straight to Caleb Love's stat line after the game. And that's a difficult position for a player to be in, especially at a school like Arizona.
Oh, yeah, it really is. And I went off about it a little bit last night. That's why the whole Caleb Love thing, Caleb Forever, started when we were talking about that. So if you want to go back and look at my rant, feel free to go back to last night's post game because I'm not doing it again. But I will forever be a defender of Caleb Love because I feel like somebody I know he cares tremendously about, not only his own performance, but his teammates and the school that he represents. And he wants to live up to those expectations. I promise you, people, he does. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. Sometimes you're going through it. And as a player, I think, I never played at the level that you did or Caleb did, but I know in times of my high school and college journey, I have had moments where I just had a stretch of 5-7 games where it just was not going my way. And I couldn't figure it out. And you just all you can do is work and keep going and keep grinding. And hopefully at some point it will turn. And, that's where Caleb Love sometimes finds himself. But I do feel better about his trajectory right now, the way he's played the last 2 games. I feel like he's got a little bit of his swag back. And I hope it continues. And I think these last 3 games are all swag games for him because playing against Iowa State at Ames, you better bring it. You better know what's coming your way, and you better have the juice. Otherwise, you will get blown out in Ames. You got to play ASU again, and we saw how that went down the first time around, and how much controversy that was. And then you finish up at Kansas, the legendary bell cow of the conference in the basketball sense. And how are you going to show up in one of the legendary arenas in the country? Like, these are 3 big time games, 3 big time opportunities. All 3 of those games on ESPN. And so that they're important to not only us and those fan bases, but also to the networks, because this is a time to shine. This is a great opportunity to be able to show out and solidify your stance as one of the best teams in the country and solidify your seeding, because the Big 12 tournament's one thing. You're going to get some love in there, especially if you get to those later rounds. But, right now the spotlight is completely on you by yourself. There is nothing else going around. So take advantage of those opportunities. So anyway, that was kind of a recap of what happened in the last basically a week before we get to Iowa. We're going to talk about 2 players individually. We're going to talk about Henri Veesaar. We're going to talk about Carter Bryant and whether or not they should stay for another year after this. All right, folks, I've told you a million times, if you're going to go and buy a house or if you're going to sell a house, the only place that you should be looking at is Carol Royce. Carol Royce is one of the best in the Valley. She's got a whole squad of people that will help you find the home of your dreams. Or if you're in the market to sell and you need to get rid of your stuff, she will help. She has an absolute wealth of talent at her disposal, and you can take advantage of that wealth of talent by going to carolroycerealty.com and getting yourself in her good graces, and she will find you the best deal possible. And listen, Carol's so confident you'll love your home that if within 18 months you aren't happy with it, the Carol Royce team will buy it back. Buy one of Carol's homes and she'll buy yours for cash. Straight up, That simple. If you're ready to find your dream home, take the next step. Call Carol Royce or visit Carol online at carolroyceteam.com. That's carolroyceteam.com. Terms and conditions do apply. And so that's one way to go about doing this, right? The other part of this, and listen, sometimes when I'm doing these ad reads, I'm like, okay, what are we talking about today? What's on the docket? What can I get excited about? And folks, let me tell you, I'm always excited about talking about Shady Rays, because Shady Rays is one of the best in the business. And Shady Rays is going to hook you up every single time, without a doubt. By using promo code PHNX, you're going to save yourself up to 35% off of polarized sunglasses at shadyrays.com. It is by far one of the best sunglasses that you can buy for your money. You need to get yourself a pair of Shady Rays, an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their sunglasses have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. So again, use promo code PHNX, and every viewer and listener of the show can go to shadyrays.com, use that promo code, and save 35% off of sunglasses with that promo code PHNX. Over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars. So use code PHNX today at shadyrays.com and rate them 5 stars for yourself today. All right. All right. Listen, I always get a little hesitant talking about this topic because we invest so much. I know the fan base invests so much in these players, and they really hope that, they're going to be these 4-year legendary seniors and rep the red and blue the way we all hope they will. But that's just not the nature of the beast, right? When we're talking about Carter Bryant and Henri Veesaar, in 2 totally different ways, they have put themselves in the conversation to either be drafted or be in the conversation to entertain the NBA at some point after the season's over. Carter Bryant's projected to be a late first-round pick already by a lot of scouting services, could even be a second-round pick. And Henri Veesaar right now is scratching the surface on the NBA potential and interest from a lot of scouts. But listen, when you see a 7-footer be able to hit the three, be able to play down low, be able to block shots and play defense, and has that sneaky kind of athleticism, you're going to catch a lot of eyeballs, and you're going to catch a lot of attention. So people will start to pay attention. And depending on how the rest of the season goes, he could very well find himself on a lot of NBA scouting prospect lists and somebody to keep an eye out for. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he might take off. And we're not saying either one will, but I'm going to make the case that both of them need to come back. And the reason why they both need to come back is pure and simple: development. Carter Bryant, still very raw. We see him constantly, trying to figure things out on the court, trying to get comfortable. At times we pointed out earlier in the season, he would get lost a couple times. He's shored that up to a degree, still has those freshman tendencies. But let's start with Carter and his development and what you think he should at least be thinking about before he attempts to take that next step, if he should so choose.
Carter Bryant, the Wildcat in me, the alum in me says, please come back to Arizona. Please come back. You need to come back. The reality is, no. That boy is a pro. He is so damn good. And the things that he's not good at is because he's only 20-something games into his collegiate career. He's going to get better at those things. The defensive errors aren't going to be there. So when the scouts look at him, they don't see anything that's not workable. Like, he's already strong. He's already 6'8". He can jump out the gym. He can already shoot. He already blocks shots. He's got a great motor. Okay, so maybe he gets lost on a play here or there. Who cares? That's just an experience thing. He has no technical flaws in terms of being a pro. I see some Tracy McGrady type stuff in this kid. So sentimentally, yes, you're not ready. Come back. Work on your game. Don't go. Realistically, man, there's not too many cats in college basketball his size doing the things that he can do. Plain and simple. I just see him in an open system just flourishing. There's a ton of guys in the NBA that are thriving and they're Carter Bryant-ish. You know what I mean? There's already prototypes of guys getting it done with his skill set, and that's why the scouts are salivating. So I guess I gave you not a real answer, because Should he stay? My heart, yes, please stay and help us get 25 wins next year and go to a Final Four. Reality, he's NBA ready. But I will say this. I'm not thrilled with the late first round nonsense. That would give me pause because I wouldn't be coming out unless I knew I was going to be early first round guaranteed money.
Lottery.
Why would you not come back to school for an additional 8 or 9 months with NIL? So you're not getting NBA money, but you're not broke. Be the man at a Power 5 blue blood, dominate a major Power 5 conference, have your name splashed all over the national landscape like Cooper Flag, and secure a much bigger bag than hoping you fall between 24 and 32 in the first round of the draft, because that's the only guaranteed money out there. So if I'm not 100% locked in that I'm going to be a high pick, in terms, I'm thinking using my adult brain, who wouldn't spend 7 or 8 months, 9 months somewhere to secure millions more eventually? A guaranteed deal as a lottery pick. Common sense. We all know that crazy things happen on draft day. There's going to be a ton of European names that get called off that you and I have never even heard of. And all these guys who are being pushed out early by their agents and their handlers and their AAU coaches and all their people with their hands out, when their name doesn't get called in the first round, Saul, there's over 100 of them every year that declare and don't get drafted in the first round.
I know.
What was the point?
I know.
Now you in the G League. Now you fighting with grown men trying to steal somebody else's job and try to get a two-way when you could have came back and been the king of the neighborhood and the flagship player at your school. And now with NIL, you can't even plead poverty anymore. Like, just come back to school and improve your position. But unfortunately, and I talk with this with, Joe McClain, and I talk with Matt Babcock and other guys, they're getting lied to. The people closest to them are lying to them about their true draft status. The people who know aren't saying, nobody's going to come out and be like, yeah, we plan to take Carter Bryant at 14. They're not going to tell you that. So what information you get and who's telling you what and who's in your ear, I mean, it's a difficult situation, but I hate to see kids come out early and not get picked up.
So you said a lot of things that I want to piggyback off of. Number one, the last thing you said about the bad advice. I will say that Carter is in a better position than most because of his dad. His dad has experience. He's played the game. He's got a pretty firm understanding of the business, and I feel like he's going to get solid advice moving forward. Now, to go back to the lottery point that a lot of people just kind of overlook because they just think first round pick. No. There's differences. There are layers to this, right? If you are a lottery pick, not only do you make more money and you get more guaranteed money, okay? But because you are a lottery pick, that franchise is going to invest as many resources as possible to get you up to speed as fast as possible so you can hit the floor running or hit the ground running in the NBA. They do not want to ship you off to the G League because an NBA lottery pick going to the G League is not a great sign. Not a great sign. Like, and that's my other part. It's like, why I still do not understand why guys opt to go to the NBA, knowing that they're a fringe. Man, most of these guys sometimes are just fringe second rounders. And then you get, maybe you're undrafted or you were drafted late in the second round, and then you got to go toil in the G League. It is a grind to try and get out of the G League. Like, you might as well be like in Siberia. I don't care what anybody says, unless you are just there's guys in the G League that are averaging 30 points a game and can't even get an NBA sniff.
Nope.
Like, that's real talk. Like, so why, as a young kid, would I want to subject myself into a situation where I have very little control? I have support, but it's not like the support you get when you're on campus and within those facilities and the people that are around you. Like, it's just different, right? You're a professional. You are not a kid anymore in their regard. So That is a major, major factor. And then the last thing, the development. The development matters. And yeah, you're going to develop when you're playing against grown-ass men. Like you're going to be forced to. However, the opportunity to develop in the NBA against NBA players in NBA games is going to be very limited if you are not considered ready to go, and especially if you are not a lottery pick. That is a very hard position to be in. My case in point, let's talk about the development of the player in the Arizona system, right? I want to look at 3 players, okay? I want to look at Jason Terry. I want to look at Sean Elliott. And I want to look at the third one was Derek Williams, okay? Pull up the graphic there, Kevin. So this graphic is, I'm sorry, Jason Terry, Sean Elliott, and Andre Iguodala, not Derek Williams, okay? This graphic shows you their first season, right? Their first season in an Arizona uniform and how they have fared. And Carter Bryant's about right where Andre Iguodala was, right? Sean Elliott obviously was the bell cow of this. Jason Terry didn't get a lot of run, averaged like 9 minutes a game, whatever, okay? This is their development into their second season. Big jump, okay? Because why? They get more experience. They get more solidified within their system. They feel more comfortable. All 3 of these guys just happen to be Lute Olson guys. And they significantly improve their stock year over year. And in fact, Andre Iguodala left for the NBA after his second season. Sean Elliott had one more after that. And then after that, it goes from there. So, like, you got to make sure that as you're moving along this, that you understand that. You understand the development. And that's just scratching the surface. Let's talk about Tommy's guys, okay? The last season before Tommy, and then the season after when they got to play for Tommy, okay? 3 guys. Go ahead, pull up the graphic. So we're going to have Keshad Johnson and Benedict Mathurin, okay? Mathurin, obviously, he was all everything in the Pac-12. He was a great player. First season, this is with Sean Miller. Keshad Johnson, his last season was at San Diego State. This is where they're at. Then you move over to the next season. Boom. Significant jumps, okay? And the thing about Keshad Johnson that nobody's going to talk about, his shooting, to me, was on display a little bit more. He averaged, I think he was like a 38.7% three-point shooter. He shot 3 times as many threes as he ever did at San Diego State. Because of the system that he was in now, it wasn't so defensive dominant like Fisher liked to run out in San Diego State. It was more like get out and run and, show your athleticism. And because of that, he did get undrafted, but he had such great potential that the Miami Heat pulled him in, and he's gotten onto the floor for the Miami Heat. He's played. He's a great player. He's one of those rare guys that they were like, we know we want to use this kid because he's really, really good. He's dynamic. He can guard a lot of positions. And that's because Tommy was able to give him the opportunity to be able to flourish in a system that showcased his athleticism a little bit better than San Diego State did. Benedict Mathurin, much the same way. We already know about Benedict, and he was obviously a lottery pick because of Tommy Lloyd, straight up. Whether you want to agree with it or not, that's the fact. Anyway, I digress.
No, and you make a lot of great points. And for me, I'll sum it up like this. When you're playing college ball, you have people rooting for you. You have a coach that's invested in your development. You have a fan base. You have an athletic training staff. Not to say that they're not invested in you at the NBA level, but in the NBA level, you instantly, the moment you stop playing college basketball, you turn into a one-person business.
Yep.
You are the owner of that business. If you want to stay after practice and get up extra shots, you can. If you want to hire a chef to cook your meals, you can. Like, you become in business for yourself. No one else benefits from how you run your business except you. There's no one rooting for you. Everybody that you're dealing with, you have to pay them. You have to pay your trainer. You have to pay your agent. You have to pay everybody. And if you're not putting forth that kind of effort, or you don't have that kind of skill set, people start walking away from you sideways. Scouts aren't going to risk their salary on you if they're not convinced. So turning into a one-person business where no one's rooting for you and you have to produce, a lot of young guys aren't ready for that. That's why you say the security of a lottery pick it helps a young player because they are going to pour into you the same way they pour into you in college. You talked about the G League. For people who've never played basketball and you want to know what it's like to play in the CBA or the G League or overseas, go back and watch Russell Crowe and Gladiator. That's the G League. Nobody wants to be there. The refs are trying to get to the NBA. The coaches are trying to get to the NBA. Everybody in your team is trying to get to the NBA. So there is no, hey, we, us, let's all do this. No, it's Agenda City. It's a bunch of guys trying to fulfill their dream at every level, and you are on your own. And if you're coming in there as a freshman who just missed the draft, you probably don't have the wherewithal at 19, 20 years old to deal with that. And that's why a lot of these guys miss the draft and they're never heard from again because you still need development. I think that was a great point you made about the jump, the extra reps, the confidence, the experience you gain from a second year lets a scout, a GM look back and say, hey, this kid's a worthy bet because we've got 2 years of footage on him. He's got 2 years of a weight program under his belt, 2 years of coaching. His IQ is probably higher. His work ethic is probably developed a little bit more. So when you talk risk versus reward, come on, man, we're talking about University of Arizona, Tucson, best winners in the country, beautiful campus, girls all over the place, NIL money, national games on ESPN. You can't come back to this for 7 or 8 more months to secure millions? Like, it blows my mind, but you'll have a lot of people who will jump out there, not get drafted, and then end up in the ring with Russell Crowe getting killed, and they're never heard from again.
Just to be fair, I will talk about Sean Miller player as well, freshman to sophomore year, and Derek Williams here in a second. But another 2 players I wanted to bring up. Christian Coloco, same thing. From 1 year to the next, significant improvement across I think every statistical category he improved from his last year with Sean Miller to his first year with Tommy Lloyd. Like, it's not even close. It's actually really remarkable. He went from a 520 field goal percentage to a 635. Like, that's a 14 percentage point jump almost. Like, incredible numbers. He went from 1 block a game to 3 blocks a game. Like, for a center, that's how you make your money. That's where you get drafted, is because you're sound, right? Like, all over the board, his numbers were through the roof, right? But not to dismiss Sean Miller, because his development was not to be like dismissed. These players just happen to find themselves in that little random wheelhouse between one coach and another, and they stuck it out. Derek Williams, his numbers are absolutely absurd, okay? Derek Williams' freshman year, he averaged 16 points a game, less than an assist, 7 rebounds a game. Cool. His second year, his sophomore year under Sean Miller, almost kind of the same in those 3 categories, right? 20 points a game, an assist a game, 8.3 rebounds. He went up a little bit there. But that's not the significant part. The significant part is the efficiency of Derek Williams and the absurd jump in statistics from 1 year to the next. When you're talking about efficiency, his efficiency in his first year as a freshman, 58.2%. Okay. Second year, 65%, and he led the nation in that category. That's how significant of a jump he made from year 1 to year 2. 3-point percentage, he shot 25% from 3 in his first year. Second year, it's absurd. Here's 56.8%. Holy crap! Right?
Yeah, I mean,
like the jump was remarkable. So anyway,
you got more opportunity, like you said, with playing time. And here's one other thing that I'll say, and you know, since we're gonna keep it all the way real, let's keep it all the way real. College basketball is a machine, and that machine has a media component to it. Guys leave, they have to elevate and promote other guys. If you pulled analytics right now and you somehow could figure out how many times Caleb Love's name gets mentioned on the national landscape, it dwarfs Carter Bryant. No one's talking about Carter Bryant in Arizona taking on Iowa State. That's not what Caleb Love in Arizona. I did a game last night, SMU at Cal. We ran a Cooper flag promo during the game. Duke's not playing, but there's a Cooper flag highlight running because we're selling the next Duke game. Carter Bryant has to understand that, bro, that's you on next year's team. It's not Caleb Love in Arizona. It's Carter Bryant in Arizona all season long in the media. Let the machine work for you. You will be the flagship guy. You will play a ton of minutes. Your statistics will jump up. And when it's time to draft somebody, I'm not going to lose my job drafting Cooper Flag. I'm not going to lose my job recommending that the GM draft Carter Bryant after his sophomore year. That's a solid bet. The media is behind it. The numbers uphold it. Like, you've got to let all the elements come together. Right now, you're not the big name at Arizona. You're not the big name on the national landscape. Now, scouts recognize you for your talent. I don't think that you've disappointed anybody, but my goodness, if you can step in and sit on the throne next year of Arizona basketball, when has somebody been the flagship player at Arizona and not gone to the league?
Oh,
Reverse the trivia question. Who's ever been the man and never played in the? That doesn't happen, bro. It's like 30 years. Because if you're the man on Arizona's team, you're going to the pros. You can it's etched in stone. So risking it late first round versus coming back, being the man, and taking all the cookies and goodies and accolades that go along with it, to me, it's a no-brainer. I wouldn't risk my future on a late first round projection. Can't do it. Not me. But I have a different mind state. I'm a much older person. When you're young and you feel like it's right there and you can just reach out and grab it, sometimes they just go for it. But I think he's going to be a heck of an NBA player no matter what. But like I said, I'd love to see him come back. But every time he dunks on somebody, every time he blocks somebody's shot, every time he hits a big three down the stretch, I'm like, damn, here we go. They about to get him. They gonna get, because they're looking at pieces. They don't care about the Arizona season. They don't care about the Arizona fan base. They're like, could we use that in Charlotte? Could we use that over here in Washington? You know, these teams that are at the bottom of the barrel in the NBA, they're like, where is this kid going to be 3 years from now? Well, he's still under contract with us. That's all they care about.
I agree, but I still feel like even though he is athletically just gifted as all heck, I still feel like there's another level that he can go physically.
Oh, no, I agree with you 1,000%.
Development. And I think to be able to get that development and showcase it 30 times next season,
huge.
And 20 of them in one of the premier conferences in the country, that would just be such a big deal. Like you said, you'd be the bell cow of this team. So, and then I don't want to take too much time on Henri Veesaar or on Carter Bryant, because Henri Veesaar is also somebody we wanted to bring up, and his development has been significant. And again, I think when I look at Veesaar and I look at his skill sets, I think, okay, I see all the intangibles there. He can play defense, he can play offense, cool. But how high can he go in terms of elevating his own stock to a place where he gets to be a first round pick, point blank? Or because I don't think he's going to get to a point where he's a lottery pick. I think it's a little too late in the game for him on that front. But can he get to that late first round? Can he get into that early second round? I think he can. And I think there's two ways he can do it. One, get a little bit better with the handle on the perimeter to be able to drive to the basket and hit those little pull-up middies, right? For a big guy, that's significant. Two, I would love it if he was able to shoot high 30%, low 40%, while also shooting about 5 to 6 threes a game. I think if he does that, that single-handedly separates him from a lot of bigs in the country, especially at the college level, and being able to hit from the perimeter, run the floor, be as athletic as he is, because he does have a little bit of that dog in him. He will rise up and dunk on somebody from time to time. We've seen it a lot of times this year. I hope he is able to develop and come back. I'm less uncertain of him coming back than I am Carter, but you just never know sometimes.
So with Veesaar, you got to look at it completely different. First of all, he's not Chet Holmgren. He's not that with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at him, I say, okay, who is a very thin 7-footer getting buckets in the league having an impact? And I come back with nobody. Who is he backing down and dominating in the paint in the NBA? Nobody. What starting 4s or 5s is he going to compete with on an NBA roster coming out of Arizona this year? Nobody.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
So the prospects of him going pro, for me, I think it's a no-brainer that he comes back and adds 20 pounds.
I agree.
And dominates in the Big 12. And now here's the other thing. People have to take these USA blinders off. This man can go to Europe and make $500,000 like that. His competition, his thought process isn't the NBA. He's not as good as Tubelis. He's not. Tubelis always had the option to go back to Europe and make boatloads of cash. All the European Arizona bigs, going back to Miller, they all had the ability to go back to Europe and get bags. They're not Americans. They have a Euro passport. They're going to play for in top leagues around Europe, and they're going to sit back and make $500,000 for 10 years because they're Europeans. So with Veesaar, you're like, okay, he may not be a knockdown, no questions asked NBA power forward. But if he adds 20 pounds and dominates the Big 12, he's not going to leave to go pro. He's going to leave to go home and make all that money in Europe for a very long time. We may never hear from him. I mean, Dusan Ristic. What was the other kid?
Carter Bryant, Azuolas Tubelis. All of them are in Europe. Raleigh Elkins is in Europe right now. Lachlan Shrier's been fighting in the G League this whole time, and I'm like, brother, you were just sacrificing so much money
on
trying
the
to make
table.
the dream work.
Ristic has made more money than Trier.
Yes,
and everybody would agree Trier's way better player.
Yeah. I don't think he has, because he did get that $7 million contract for a 2-year deal.
Well, there you go. So there, okay.
So
So
got that little boost.
If you lose him, it's going to be the European game. And these guys have agents, European agents, who are monitoring their college careers. And when they think that there's a payday that they want to cash in on, they're going to leverage that European club offer against NIL. And if you can't match what the Greek team or the French team or the Spanish team is going to pay, they're going to pluck that kid out of school and bring him back to Europe, and you'll never hear from him again. That's the problem. NIL versus a good top-level Euro club. Veesaar would make a ton of money right now in Europe. All his value is just going to go up the longer he stays at Arizona. So I think he's coming back, which is great for Arizona. He may never step foot in the NBA, to be honest with you. I don't know if he's on anybody's draft boards. I don't see, unless he puts on a ton of weight and really just starts putting people in the rim and develops a back to the basket type of game, I don't know that he's going to go straight to the league. He, no matter what weight he puts on, he ain't scoring on Bam Adebayo. So take yourself, go somewhere where you're appreciated and not tolerated. And he's going to get a bag too to go to Europe. Now, I would have loved to play with somebody like him when I was overseas. A 7-footer that can stroke the three, can rim run, throw the lob, drop it off for the dunks, can block shots. He's going to make a ton of cash. He's going to have a very long career. But you just rattled off a bunch of Arizona alums that are in Europe doing very well for themselves, and that may be his career path. But to sum it all up, I'd love to see them both side by side next year.
I mean, some people just don't know because they haven't lived it, but you have. So there you go.
Yeah, I know what it's like. It's like you don't hoop, you don't eat. See, right now, if you don't hoop, people beat you up on social media. Once you take off that Arizona jersey and you're in business for yourself, you don't hoop, you don't eat. And nobody cares if you get up extra shots. Nobody cares if you hit the weights. That's your career. It's your life. It's your money. It's your food. It's your family. And that's a whole different way to hoop than what you're used to in college.
It really is. It really is. It really is. All right, let's get to it. Ball up top, because we got Iowa State on tap Saturday in Ames, 7 p.m. matchup on ESPN. And listen, this is a wildly different game than the first time around. And the biggest reason why is because there's been some shifting of players around. Gilbert is expected to play. He had a muscle strain. He's been out for a couple games, but they do expect him back on Saturday. And Momcilovic did not play against Arizona the first time around. He's a solid forward who can hit the three, who can play down low. He gave Houston the business the first time a couple weeks ago. this is the problem I see right now. And you notice that I did not have ADO in the starting lineup for this week, because if you look at the three, Jefferson, Momcilovic, and Jackson, those are three bigs. And my concern is if you start with ADO on Jefferson, hey, block, give it to me all day. Like, they won't even mess around. Like, Tame and Lipsy will just be like, oh, clear out, let's go. They're all day long against that, right? So who else could have possibly matched up physically against Jefferson? Unless you want to start with KJ, but KJ's still, he's not as big as Carter. And so I feel like you kind of have to start with Carter. And as one of those three comes out, then you kind of rotate the other guys in. So that's a tough matchup. Go ahead. I was really excited to hear what you were going to say from your perspective on this five, because you still got to account for Jones coming off the bench too. But we got KJ coming off the bench and obviously so anyway.
Here's why you can start whatever lineup you want if you're Tommy and Arizona, and you can start Del Oso. I know it sounds crazy because you're right. It's an instant mismatch, but strategy can cover up matchups. I'll take you back to my senior year. We played Florida State. They had 2 7-footers. I was a power forward. I had to guard one of them. Coach was like, you can't guard this kid on the block. They had Bobby Sura, 2 7-footers. They were coming to McKale Center. Oh, my God. We're okay at the 5, but what is Corey going to do against the 7-footer? Well, we're switching this, and this. Corey's going to play high side and helps coming from the baseline, and we're going to rotate out of it. So the scheme negated the mismatch. Arizona can do the same thing with Del Orso out there. If Del Orso gets caught on the block, he's under specific instructions to play high side. When the ball comes in, we're doubling on the first dribble and we're rotating out of it. And what you're gambling on is that can be effective. And at the other end, now they've got the problem with who in the hell is going to go out in the corner and guard Del Orso. So you can try to cover up mismatches with a team scheme. And we did it against Cincinnati, where they had 2 big guys and I was this undersized 4. And coach would just be like, do this on this situation, and then we're going to get out of it. And you're like, okay, it's the beginning of the game. The score's 0-0. And if it works in our favor and we jump out to an 11-2 lead because Del Orso makes a couple threes, then great. If it doesn't work and it's 6-5 and they're beating us up in the paint and we can't rotate right, then yeah, you come back with KJ and it's business as usual. But it's definitely worth the try to see if you can get Del Orso hot early. Yes, he's going to give up something, but can you cover it up with a scheme? Now, do I have a lot of confidence in Arizona's ability to successfully execute defensive rotations and schemes? Nah. I've seen too many easy buckets, too many miscommunications, too many backdoor layups, too many times guys yelling at each other, Carter Bryant getting a little lost on things. So maybe you don't come out, like you said, with the small lineup at Iowa State. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because call me crazy, but Del Orso might be the determining factor in a deep tournament run, because 3 or 4 threes from him in the tournament, believe me, you're talking to a guy. I made a couple of threes in our Final Four run, and I made a couple of threes, 3 or 4 threes in our Final Four game. Those 2 or 3 threes that I knocked down were huge, and I was a guy that nobody was even thinking about. But he could be a kid that could turn a game on its head with the flick of the wrist, and I don't think Tommy wants to get him used to being on the bench. He wants to keep him in the mix. So yeah, maybe you do gamble the first 4 minutes and let him play and see what happens.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
I just
easily exploit it, but yeah.
I again, schematically, I would say, oh, by the way, if you're streaming on any of our streaming channels, make sure you hop on over to gophnx.com and check out the rest of the show. When you're looking at the scheme, like, I do have a little bit of hesitancy because I'm not entirely confident that even if the scheme was good, if they could execute it to the level that they're going to need to. Plus, you got to account for new wrinkles that Iowa State is going to throw in, because they will, just like BYU did against Arizona the second time. Like you play a team a second time, you adjust a little bit, and then you go from there. So it is going to be a challenge. And it's a significantly different game because Iowa State is, I believe they are 16-1 when all of their players are healthy. They were 3-6 with just one is hurt. It's a significantly different team when they are missing one of their key players. So that's a big factor. All those guys are going to be playing now. They got to get back into the rhythm. Gilbert's going to have to kind of get back into this flow again. And so you're hoping that maybe you can expose that to a certain degree, but it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a much tougher game than the first time around. And Arizona was lucky to get out of that one with that full court shot that Caleb Love had to set it to overtime and then end up winning by 11.
One other thing I want to touch on as a coach, when you're in the pregame presser and they're like, how are you going to match up with blah, blah, blah? When you verbally concede a mismatch days before tip, don't underestimate the effect that has on the mentality of your guys.
I got you. Yep. I got you.
So you're just like, you know what? Yeah, I know, but we'll see. I'm not changing my starting lineup because we're going to Iowa State. We'll figure out a way to address whatever issues it poses, but I'm not going to slap a kid in the face 3 days in advance and be like, oh, well, we're going to bench Corey and we're going to go with the big. I'm just admitting to Corey that I don't believe you can handle this. And I know what you're saying. It's a very real threat because that is a bigger lineup than what Arizona will be walking out there with to tip off. But I also love the fact that Tommy's in it with the kids. Like, yo, we gonna see. We can switch up after the round one and go southpaw if we need to, but we gonna come out with our jab like we always do, and we gonna work the jab and go to the body. And he's like, that's our strategy. They've got to match, and that was Coach O used to say it all the time. They have to worry about us. We're not worried about them. They got to worry about us. And he really believed that. I mean, it was a little arrogant at the time, but Coach O used to say that all the time. Like, how are you going to guard them with Miles and Jason Terry being smaller guards, and Reggie Gary has to guard Jalen Rose and Michigan so big? They got to guard us. And we beat them by 40. Sometimes it works. I don't know if it'll work next week, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And then finally, obviously, the rematch before our next podcast against ASU. Hey, we don't really have to take too much time on that one because, listen,
we do.
It's the last game of the season.
I'm on the game.
I know you're on. I was getting to that point. All right. Corey is going to be on the game. And again, it's ASU. I don't know what's happening with ASU. I think the depression is a real thing right now in that program. They're not exactly the high that they were on for football. They're absolutely down in basketball, and they have been riddled with injuries. I expect a big blowout in that game, but sometimes you never know, especially in a rivalry game. And sometimes when to your point, when you're down, sometimes it gives other guys an opportunity to be like, I know I got to show up, otherwise we're going to get blown out, and they rise to the challenge. We'll see if that happens with ASU, but I have all the confidence in the world that Arizona will be able to handle their business in the last game at McKale for the 2024-25 season. So, and before we get out of here, we asked you, we're taking it to the streets. We haven't been to the streets in a while, so, hey, the streets is talking, and we asked, hey, what do you think the most likely outcome is in the Big 12 tournament? And you guys responded with the semifinal is the most likely result. So a loss in the semifinal, and they're bounced. Which, you know what? A lot of people are saying, hey, get one win, solidify your position, and just go home and save yourself 5-6 days of rest before you get ready for the tournament. I don't
love that.
I don't love that either, but I can see the mentality behind it. Like, it is what it is.
I don't like that. I don't like that. That's not the bear down spirit, man. That's not.
It isn't. It isn't. But listen,
that's so weak, man.
If you have horses, and you have guys that are, I feel like this team has been through it this year. They've given everything they can, and I can understand the mentality for this particular team. I can. I think people are just concerned that they're going to get worn out at the wrong time.
Right. And I think, getting there, new environment, whatever. Yeah, we're the new kid at school and people don't know us. And now we out on the playground and it's time to defend ourselves. So we got to show people, hey, the new kid can fight. Like, we got to show them. Yeah, we've got a good brand. Kansas has a brand. Iowa State recently. Houston has a brand. but these are neutral site games. I'm really hoping that the Arizona contingent travels much. I know it's not Vegas. I'm not expecting it to be McKale North like it was in Vegas. But man, I'm hoping thousands of our people find it in their hearts to travel to Kansas City in the winter.
I don't want to burst your bubble, Corey, but I just don't feel it. I don't feel like
I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of. I don't even know
I've
what
been asking around.
Yeah.
I've been asking around to people that I've seen in Vegas every single year. And I'm like, you going to go to Kansas City? Because I'm going to Kansas City.
Right.
Nah, not this time. Not this round. Like people just are not enthused about it for whatever reason. Like,
it's Kansas City, bro.
I mean, I like Kansas City. Kansas City is a good city.
Bro, I mean, I'm being real. You got to pay me to go to Kansas City. I'm not going there voluntarily.
Bro,
Have you
been there before?
No, because I have a life and I have money. I'm not going to Kansas for what?
Because I have a life.
Orlando, yes, the Bay, Seattle, Miami, Chicago, New York. These are places I would go if it was my money. But Kansas City, I have to have a relative must have died, or you got to give me some reason to get on the plane to Kansas.
First of all, okay, time out. First of all, the barbecue capital of the world. I mean, some of the best barbecue you could possibly have. Okay. Some of the most legendary barbecue you could ever taste is right there in Kansas City. Gates, Arthur Bryant's, LC's. I mean, just it's just I'm a barbecue guy, as you know. You are too. True. And it's just, oh my God, you can't miss it. And also the Gaslight District. I'm trying to sell everybody here. You got to come out to Kansas City. I'm telling you, because you have the Gaslight District. There's a lot of it's a really cool venue. When they had the World Cup, when they were playing the World Cup in 2014 overseas, they would pack that whole section, and it was amazing. It was lit. It was cool. And then you have like a lot of historical things, like the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame is out there. You have it's a cool vibe, and I'm telling you, don't sleep on Kansas City until you've at least given it a chance once. Listen, folks, you go out there one time and you don't like it, hey, ask for your money back. You ain't gonna get it from me.
Do they got like a Riverwalk area in the summertime? It's nice and something like that.
I don't know, because we're going out there in March, dog. Now, I don't care about the summer.
At the same time, I want to see Arizona fans go, because I think for all the Big 12 fans that never stepped foot in McKale, nothing made me more proud than when we would take over T-Mobile and everybody would be like, damn. I was like, yeah, this is what it's like at our home games. And they're like, this is crazy. Yeah, it's the Pac-12 tournament, but this is our house. And even though you've never come to Tucson, this is what it feels like. I would love for us to show up in Kansas City and let the rest of the Big 12 see the difference between our fan base and theirs, because they all talk like their legacy in Kansas. Yeah, Kansas is Kansas. But other than Kansas, ain't nobody as deep as us. Ain't nobody got the history and the fan base that we do. So I would love our fan base to show up.
Iowa State travels, and from everything I've heard so far about,
it's their show. That's what I heard too.
Yeah, I heard that Iowa State shows up like crazy out there for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they do.
Well, when you're from Ames, Iowa, Kansas City is lit. I mean,
Kansas City's like Vegas.
People in Tucson are like, why would we go to Kansas City? I mean, it's all about levels to this. If I was in Ames, Iowa, I'd be trying to go anywhere. I probably would go to Kansas City if I was in Ames, Iowa. Now I'm sending shots at Ames, and I shouldn't be doing that. I should be a nice guy.
Yeah, because you never know. You're gonna end up there one time.
I know, man. I know they're gonna. So far, I dodged a couple. I mean, I heard it's a great basketball environment. They got a hell of a program. But yeah, I did hear the same thing. I heard that the tournament is really Iowa State's. They run that thing. So
yeah, and Kansas is only like an hour and a half away.
And they still blow them out.
Yeah. And they still blow them out. So that's kind of wild to think that Kansas has such a legendary program, but yet Iowa State still packs that house like crazy. So we'll see. We're going to find out how many of our beloved Wildcat fans are going to show out there to Kansas City. I'll be out there forever for like 9 days.
Be mindful of the TSA requirements on liquids when you bring back all my Kansas City barbecue sauces. Get the small ones so your boy can, hook me up.
First of all, let me tell you something about me, dog. I have all that stuff already at the house. I don't need to go to Kansas City.
So I'm gonna Apple Pay you some bread, and you just go shopping for me while you're out there.
My hat. It's a meat church hat.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, I got their rub. I know about them. I
Oh
got
yeah,
the
yeah,
rub.
yeah.
That's good stuff,
So
good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I love their brand. Anyway, before we did get out of here, obviously we are playing ASU on Tuesday, and I just felt like, you know what, who better to throw shade at ASU than an alum of high stature at ESPN. So RJ had this tweet when somebody asked, "Who's your favorite Arizona State athlete in whatever sport?" And RJ said, "Headache Smith." Mic drop. Mic drop. That's classic. If you don't know who Headache Smith is, go look it up. There's a documentary on it. It's crazy.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you.
Uh-oh.
As much as they got in all that trouble with the point shaving and stuff, and Headache Smith kind of tarnished his name, there was a couple of dudes on those teams that we absolutely respected. Like, yo, we're gonna beat y'all, but we already know ain't nobody messing with them. Headache Smith and the big fella Mario.
Yep.
Bro.
Ron Riley was on that team too, right?
Ron Riley, we would beat them. But Mario Bennett and Headache Smith,
they got y'all once.
Nobody shut them down. Let's just be real. I'm just being honest. We didn't shut them down. We would beat them. But man, Headache was, oh my goodness, that boy could play. Mario dunking over everybody, great athlete. ASU always kept a couple of heaters with them every year. They always had a couple of dudes that would give you some trouble, but as a team, they obviously weren't any match for us. But yeah, RJ sending shots, being a little disrespectful. But like I said, he got the money. He could do that. He could talk trash on X. He's set for life. Nobody's coming for him.
He's been on one with ASU over the last month.
Yeah,
so
that Bobby thing really struck a nerve with him, man.
It did, right? It really did. I don't know what happened there, but he was like, "Oh, I got something to say."
Yeah. Just easy target.
We do appreciate everybody for joining us today on the McKale Madness podcast. Make sure you hit a like and subscribe to our podcast on whatever podcast platform you have. We would surely appreciate it, and leave a 5-star review because it always helps us. And as always, we will be back next Wednesday, I do believe, as we kind of recap the week that was with Iowa State, ASU, as we head out to Kansas for the last game of the season. I will be out there at Fog. If you decide to make the trek out there, I promise you it's worth it. I promise you, if you want to stay out there a couple extra days, your homie will hang out with you and go to the barbecue spots. Wow. And we'll kick it. We'll have a good. I have like 3 days with nothing to do in between Kansas and the start of the Big 12 tournament. And in the first 2 days of the Big 12 tournament, I'm probably just sitting there just watching hoop because what am I going to do? Arizona's not playing. So I love it because, Corey, when you and I were at the Big 12 or at the Pac-12 tournament, that first day when Arizona wasn't playing and we got to see all the other teams play.
Oh, yeah.
That was the best time because we could just sit there and BS and watch ball and just it was fun. That was like pure basketball. And that's one of my favorite times of the year.
You know what was great about it is I took you and Justin to Lowry's afterwards.
You did.
That's what made the trip.
See, this is how bad it went. I tried to return the favor, and I took Corey to Popeyes, and right in the middle of our meal, I got an alert that Rudy Gobert tested positive corona, and everything shut down right after that.
The world shut down over Popeyes in Vegas.
When I paid for the meal, the world shut down. See? That's why I don't pay for the meal anymore.
Yeah. Popeyes came out to about the hors d'oeuvres and salads at Lowry's. The starters at Lowry's were Popeyes.
It was fun. Shout out to our guy Justin Spears too, because he was on that little trip with us too. Once again, we do appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your week. Go Wildcats, and as always, bear down.
ALLCITY.